What is up, Flutter devs? Today we're going to work on extracting mouse and possibly keyboard behavior out of our core implementation of Flutter processing and into their own files. Let's go see if we can figure it out. All right, here we are in the core definition, and we have here some mouse properties and maybe some behaviors. We want to extract all of these into a mixin in its own file. Let's follow the pattern from our previous videos and see if it all works out or not. We'll start by creating a new package called input. Oh, we already have one called input. Under input, we will create a file called mouse. And I see time and date here. That should have an underscore in front of it. Now it's called input mouse because that's the category and subcategory within the Flutter processing documentation. We'll come into core and we'll grab all of this input mouse stuff and we will cut it and paste it. Actually, before we paste it, let's say mixin sketch input mouse, then we'll paste it. Okay. And then before we worry about imports, let's remember that we are declaring each of these files as part of core.dart. And then in core, to make that two-way relationship complete, we have to come into core.dart, and then we will say part input mouse.dart. So in mouse.dart, notice that all of our compilation errors went away because we're getting all of our imports from core.dart. But in core.dart, we still need to use this mixin. And if we're lucky, everything will just work once we add the mixin. And if we're not lucky, then we'll have to figure out other things. So here's all the mixins that we already have so far. And we want sketch input mouse. Okay, and it looks like all the red has disappeared, which would be great if everything works. I don't remember if we wrote any tests for the mouse behavior. We can run the test just in case. I'm not sure we actually have any tests for this, but let's see. Flutter test. And while that's running, come back here to mouse, and just as a recap of what we've got here, we're tracking some information about the current and previous mouse X and Y. We have this private method to update the mouse position. This is used by the Flutter widget because the Flutter is what knows about the mouse position. The pressed mouse buttons, is mouse pressed. This is all the stuff that we're moving in here. And all of our tests pass. Again, I don't know if that tells us anything or not. I'm not sure that we wrote tests for this, but if we did, they pass. So that's good. And since this worked out all right, let's go ahead and do the same thing for keyboard. Mixin sketch input keyboard. We'll come down here to the bottom where we have the keyboard input. We'll cut that. And we will say part of core.dart. We'll come back to core.dart and we will say part input keyboard.dart. And then we need to actually use the mixin sketch input keyboard. All right. All the red is gone here. All the red is gone here. So it looks like keyboard works as well. So those were easier than I thought. I thought the private properties and some of these callbacks would create some issues for us, but it seems to have gone okay. So let's see if there's anything else that we can pull out. We can try the environment. I have no idea what that's going to do. There's a lot of stuff here in the environment, some of which is not implemented yet. But let me see over here. Is environment the top level category or a subcategory? Okay, environment is a top level category, and then all of this stuff is directly within the environment category. Let's give this a try. Let's see if we can pull it out. We'll say source package environment. That's misspelled. Environment. And then create a file of the same name, underscore environment. Back in core, let's grab all of this stuff. Mixin sketch environment. Now you'll see that we need painting context, which means that we need on base sketch. We're going to run into an additional problem as well, but we'll see that in a moment. We don't want imports. We want to say part of core.dart. And we just keep repeating this pattern over and over. Part environment underscore environment. And then with sketch environment, save. The red is gone here. However, we still have red in here. Desired width and height, that should probably be in here too. So desired width and height. I think probably all three of these things make more sense inside of environment. But this is going to be a problem for us. This is the second time that we've run into a problem like this, and the problem is the background method and the underscore background property belong to a different mixin. They belong to the color setting mixin. Here's the background method, here's the background color property. And that begs the question what we want to do about this. Let's pull up the description of the size method again. I want to see why we decided to paint the background color when we call size. Okay, defines the width and the height. Yeah, must be the first line of code. Okay. Set by parameters. Looking for any mention of color. If we notice here in this example, there's size and then there's background. And so I think we'll see if this breaks any tests, and it might, but let's just get rid of this from size altogether. Let's not paint the background every time size changes. Let's save that. I think all the red squigglies are gone. Let's run the tests. And this might fail some tests because we might be assuming that size paints a background color. Okay, we did fail one test. Let's see if we can figure out what test that was. Environment size example 1. Okay. Environment failures. So the original image looked like this. The new image looks like this. Let's see why that is. Here's the test. Let's see, we want environment size example 1. This is the test that's failing here. So we call 200 by 200, and you can see, so because we expect that when we call size, it paints the background, right? And that's, so there, I think the reason that we were doing that is because there is supposed to be a default background color. There is supposed to be a default background color. Setup will paint the default background color at the default size, which is only 100 by 100. Obviously, then if we change the size, if size is, the first method that we call, we're supposed to still have that background color. What can we do about that? Let me try one thing which I don't think is going to work, but let's find out for sure. If we come into environment and we say on base sketch, can we also say on, what's the other file? It's setting, it's color setting, sketch color setting. Well, that seems to pretend to compile. If we come back down to size and we say background color, okay, that seems to work. Let's run the tests again. If this works, what we're saying is that not only do we if you're going to use this mixin, not only do you have to put it on top of a base sketch, but you also have to put it on top of a sketch color setting. And I didn't expect the compiler to be able to figure out the triangulation there, but maybe it did. Yeah, okay. Again, okay, so that solved the problem. It's not a great solution because if you start doing this just a few times, you're going to have a mess of cross dependencies. So this is an unfortunate situation. If I find an alternative to this later, I'll probably switch it out. But right now, this is the only time that we've absolutely needed to do this so far. And so I'm hopeful that we won't have to do it many places again. And also the environment settings, these are pretty broad. Like the environment area, like there's a lot of stuff in here that's far reaching in terms of what it means to a sketch painting. So I'm not surprised that sketch environment is one of the things that needs additional control. So now we have environment pulled out, the test pass. Now I noticed this mouse wheel stuff. I'm guessing this should all be under mouse as well. Let me make sure that's true in the documentation. Yeah, mouse should have all of these methods as well. It looks like same thing for keyboard up above. So these got split up at some point. I didn't implement them all at the same time or in the same place. So let's get these out of here. Grab these out and we want to put these into mouse. Input mouse. So it's complaining that it can't find mouse moved. Okay, and that's because those are properties on Sketch, not base Sketch. And so what we can do is we can take these callbacks, remove them from here, and bring them into the mouse definition. Well, now there's this problem, is that they need to provide the sketch. Well, that's annoying. It's also interesting that we mix in sketch input mouse, but it's complaining about setting these. I guess you can't set mix-in variables in a constructor. Okay, this is going to require some additional thought. So I'm going to come back here to mouse. We're going to take all these things back out of here. I'm going to undo what I did here. I'll leave that problem for another time to figure out what we do about callbacks. Let's see, can we move structure then? Let's see the structure group. What is this? Structure is its own category with a whole bunch of stuff in it. Okay. Source, package, structure, and then create a file, underscore structure.dart, mixin, sketch, structure, come back to core, grab this stuff, paste it here, and then we're going to say part of core.dart. Okay. Come back up here. Part structure.dart, and then go find this stuff, sketch, structure. All the red squigglies are gone there. They're gone there. And so now the control of looping is extracted as well. So what all are we left with here? Well, obviously we have callback issues. So for the keyboard and the mouse callbacks, I'm going to have to think about it. Hopefully by the next video, I can figure it out. On frame available is a somewhat similar situation. Is drawing and has done setup and do draw frame. There's essentially a life cycle here. And these are not public methods in the processing API. This is just our implementation of what it takes to orchestrate the drawing of a frame. Should those be defined here directly? Should we move them out? I'll have to think about that as well. Same thing here for do setup. As we have do draw frame, we have do setup, on draw, draw. And then we have more, here's other stuff related to those callbacks. Namely, this is where the callbacks are called. Okay. So until we solve callbacks, all of these things are stuck in here. Other than that, those two categories, callbacks and then our own implementation of a life cycle, all we have are these enums right here. And I think so for the mouse button, if we're going to follow the pattern before, let's come over here and create a public file called mouse buttons. Grab that, put it here, come into Flutter Processing, export, source, input, mouse buttons. And then, let's see, do we have any compile errors? I think we're all good. Image file format. That should probably go under output. We can say new file, image file formats. Okay. And then we want to export that as well. Export, source, output, image file formats. We're exporting both of these because people who use the processing package need to be able to reference mouse buttons and they need to be able to reference file formats. All right. So we're down to 3 pieces to this puzzle in here. Piece number 1 is the processing widget. Piece number 2 is base sketch. Piece number 3 is the actual sketch definition with all of these mixins. Maybe we have 1 or 2 more extraction videos to go, but at that point, I think we've fully simplified or decomposed this code to the best of our ability. And from there, I think probably the next thing I'm going to do is add a contributor's guide, maybe spruce up the README a little bit, and talk a little bit about accepting contributions to this project moving forward. So we're getting very close, maybe a couple more videos like this, and then hopefully turning this into more of a community project. So I'll see you in the next video.